Welcome to the next online lecture for Western Civ 1. This lecture will seek to build on our knowledge of ancient Greece. Today we'll see what happens when Greek expansion catches the eye of the world's greatest power. Now this is an important topic because had Greek society not survived this threat, Western civilization would look very, very different today. That said, there are a number of questions you should be able to answer at the end of this lecture. Moreover, there are some map items that you should be able to identify, so let's get started. Let's begin with just a little bit of a review. The so-called Greek Dark Age lasted from 1100 to 750 BCE. This was the period that featured the decline of the Mycenaean culture and, in many respects, the decline of Greek culture. But beginning around 750 BCE, a new age began in Greek history. This is known as the Archaic Age, and this was an age that featured a revival of Greek society and culture. For example, it was an age when Greek culture and trade flourished across the Mediterranean Sea. Greece even began to send out colonists to spread Greek culture across the region. One target of that colonization was a land that the Greeks called Ionia. We know it today as the western coast of Turkey. There, in Ionia, they established a number of flourishing cities. The Archaic Age was also a time when the polis gained shape. Remember, the polis was a unique Greek community that included both the city and the surrounding countryside. The citizens in those cities owed great loyalty to their local government. They were also highly suspicious of other polis around Greece. This was both a strength and a weakness of Greek society. But not everything was great for Greece during the Archaic Age, however. The expansion of Greece, especially the establishment of Greek colonies across the sea, drew the eye of the greatest power that existed in the world at that time. That great power was the Persian Empire, and in 490 BCE, the Persians decided to add Greece to its list of conquered peoples. By 500 BCE, the Persian Empire stretched from India in the east, north to what is now Russia, and west as far as Libya in Africa. It was without question the most powerful empire in the world to date. Among Persia's conquests were a group of Greek colonies along the west coast of what we now call Turkey. Again, this is what the Greeks called Ionia. The Persians conquered the Greek colonies of Ionia, and this is the first contact now between Greek culture and Persian culture. Persia enlisted soldiers from dozens of different conquered peoples and cultures. At the heart of this vast army was a group known as the Immortals, an elite force of 10,000 soldiers. They were named the Immortals because their number was never allowed to fall below 10,000. If one Immortal was killed, another was trained to take his place. In 499 BCE, the colonies in Ionia, the Greek colonies in Ionia, I should say, revolted against Persian rule. They did so with the encouragement and assistance of Athens. Now, the Ionian rebels were successful at driving out the Persians momentarily. However, the Persians will return a few years later and reconquer this territory. But this is not the end of the conflict between Greece and Persia. To punish Athens for its role in the Ionian revolts, Persia will turn its attention to an invasion of Greece in the year 490 BCE. Here was where the genius of the polis can be seen. The Athenians put together an army of citizens to resist the Persian onslaught. The Athenians fought with great passion and vigor, and, though outnumbered, defeated the Persians at the Battle of Marathon in the year 490 BCE. The Persians weren't done, however. Just because they lost at Marathon did not mean they gave up their dreams of conquering Greece. In 480 BCE, the new Persian king, a man named Xerxes, will launch a massive invasion of Greece. He has 150,000 troops and 700 ships. This is a massive force for this period in history. The mountainous terrain of Greece will prove a challenge for such a massive Persian army, however. A huge army is only an advantage when it can fight in an open field, where its numbers can surround and overwhelm the enemy. As the Persian army tried to move across Greece, however, they were forced into narrow columns as they tried to get through the mountainous passes. Another problem for the Persians is that at this point, the Greeks finally united. Armies from across Greece met to stop the Persian invasion. On the ground, the Greek armies were led by King Leonidas of Sparta. Leonidas led an army of 9,000 Greeks from various cities, not just Sparta. Among those 9,000, however, were 300 elite Spartan troops who led the fighting. Now, Leonidas hoped to stop the Persians at a narrow pass called Thermopylae. They held off the huge Persian army, in fact, for days, until the enemy finally figured out a way around the pass. At this point, the Greeks seemed to be doomed. Leonidas' army fought bravely to the last man before finally being defeated. Following their victory at Thermopylae, the Persians will continue to march down the Greek peninsula. Ultimately, they will reach Athens. The Athenians, knowing they couldn't defeat the Persian army at this time, abandoned their city and fled. And once again, we can see the power of the polis. Because even though Athens was burned and looted by the Persians, in other words, the city itself was destroyed, the Athenian people stuck together and looked for another opportunity to defeat their enemy. That opportunity will arrive, and ultimately the Athenians will lure the Persians into a naval battle. While Sparta had been developing its army, the Athenians had learned how to fight on the water. This expertise paid off when an Athenian fleet crushed the Persian navy at the Battle of Salamis. The defeat at Salamis made it impossible for the Persians to supply their massive army. A unified Greek army will defeat the Persians at Plataea and ultimately drive the invaders from the peninsula. So what can we learn from Greece's victory in the Persian Wars? Well, first we can learn that Greece was a formidable enemy when the cities were united. We also can learn that the polis can be a very, very powerful tool. It is a sense of community that will lead both the Athenians and the Spartans to fight so well. Had the Persian Wars in fact led Greece to unite, she might have continued to develop into a great world power. But she doesn't, however. Without a common enemy to hold them together, the Greeks will begin to fight among themselves. This will ultimately lead to their doom. But that's a lesson for another day.